Hello and welcome to Was Up Doc's coverage of both the 2022 Hambletonian Stakes and the Oaks being run at the Meadowlands on Saturday, August 6th and being televised on Fox Sports 2, plus other television and streaming services that afternoon. We interviewed 4 Standardbred superstar guests and collected some racing insight. They are John Campbell, Billy O'Donnell, Tim Tetrick, and Gregory Peck. Please check out both of our 2-part interviews. Thank you. I want to welcome today John Campbell. He's a preeminent Standardbred driver and Harness Racing Hall of Fame member. If I spent the whole time of this interview giving you his credentials, we could go on for an hour, so I'm just going to be brief. 29 Breeders' Cup championships, 17 Triple Crown victories, including 6 Hambletonian wins, 45 years in the racing industry with over 10,000 wins and just shy of $300 million in purses. Considered by many to be the greatest reinsman of all this era. He's current president and CEO of the Hambletonian Society. Now, today's program, we're going to try to give you a general insight into what many Standardbred aficionados consider to be the premier race of the year, the Hambletonian Stakes. It'll be televised live this Saturday on Fox 2 Sports, or Fox Sports 2, and it'll be on other media and streaming networks through the Meadowlands and through the Hambletonian Society, all available if you look them up. The Meadowlands Racetrack, reminder, is in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and the day begins at 12:30. It's a full day of festivities, and it goes all the way till the final race. The 2 races that we're interested in today to talk about, the $600,000 Hambletonian Oaks Trot for 3-year-old fillies, it's the 12th race, and it's at 4:48 p.m. It will be televised on that Fox Sports 2. The final race, the 15th, is the $1.2 million Hambo Open final trot for 3-year-olds, and that will be at 6:35 p.m. When I say open, it's open to males and females, which is very interesting because this year we have an action-packed group of females that have entered the race. So first off, John, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your precious time, knowing how busy you must be in preparation for this amazing race day on Saturday.
Thanks, Doc. It's my pleasure to be back on the show.
Well, you're always a gentleman, and I know you're always in demand, and I don't know how you keep up with your schedule, but things keep getting bigger and better there at the Meadowlands, and quite frankly, probably you're as happy as everyone else that this COVID disaster is behind us, or at least appears to be, because it'll be a great day.
Yeah, we did have the Hambletonian in 2020 through COVID, and that certainly was a challenge. Last year we had limited capacity at the racetrack, but we're back to normal this year. We're expecting a really good crowd, and we certainly have 2 really good races, the Hambletonian Oaks and the Hambletonian. I think they're really entertaining and interesting races. There's Rebuff will be the favorite, and he's the most dominant colt so far, but we've got some other horses in there that are going to give them a really good run, and 2 of them are fillies. Well,
later we will be doing a quick interview with Tim Tetrick, who should be the driver for Rebuff, the Muscle Hill colt, which I'm particularly thrilled. I found out 10 years after working on Muscle Hill that I worked on him, and I didn't even know at the time, but he turned out to be one of the great racehorses and great breeding stallions. We'll be talking to Greg Peck a little bit later too. So my first question to you, Saturday we'll be watching several of the best trotters, and just because of my audience being a plethora of different types of equestrian people and people outside the equestrian sport, they don't always know the fine definitions, but the trotters are a much more unique sector. They're a smaller sector of the breed, of the Standardbred breed. They race a little bit slower, and they're a little bit more finicky. And so anyway, that's why this is such a premiere for these trotters. And this is going to be one of the most prestigious races in the Standardbred Stakes races of all the years. Amidst this competition, what jumps out at you most regarding the equine talent, the super drivers, and the top trainers all participating? And I will open it up, not just for the Hambletonian, but also for the Oaks.
Well, it's an evolution of our breed. Standardbreds compared to the thoroughbreds are a relatively young breed. We're still developing. And they're getting faster and more athletic all the time, more refined. You mentioned trotters being a little more finicky, which they are, but nothing like they used to be, 20 years ago. the breed has just refined them so much that they don't make as many mistakes and go off stride as they used to, and their gait is totally different. It's more efficient, and just the speed that these horses can go in this day, and it's still improving and going faster all the time. It's remarkable to see.
Okay, in your opinion, we have three very talented fillies or females that are entered in the Open Hambletonian Stakes.
Just two, Doc. Just two.
Oh, I thought there was three.
No, two.
We've got who are we have
Jiggy
Jog S.
She won her elimination, and Joviality was third, beat ahead in that elimination. So there's just the two.
Okay, so I had a third by accident. Okay, so we've got the two in there, but this is a little bit unusual, maybe not for standardbreds, but definitely for thoroughbreds. And it turns out that in 2020, we had Ramona Hill, a Muscle Hill filly, and in 2018, Atlanta, Chapter 7 filly, each won the Hambletonian. What do you think the chances are in 22? We'll have a third Hambo winner in 5 years, which would probably then surpass more fillies than males in this situation.
Yes, and before that, we went quite a long time without a filly winning. So it's just kind of remarkable that we've had this run of fillies, and both these fillies that are entered are capable of winning. As I said, I believe Rebuff will be the favorite, and he deserves to be so. So he's really, come back from a strong 2-year-old year. They've managed him, very conservatively, but he's going into the race in as good a shape as he possibly can, and he's looked very strong in his elimination. But both those fillies and Temporal Hanover, they can really go as well. And we always say it kind of depends on the trip, and I think it's certainly true again this year. Rebuff's the type of horse, he gets out of the gate good. He can kind of make his own luck. The other ones might have to need a certain type of trip to beat him, but it's not impossible.
And is there any prejudice in the fillies running in this open race versus waiting and racing in the Oaks? I know the money is greater, and I know that in theory the reward as far as prestige might be a little bit more for filly to have won a race like that, but generally you would think that the fillies would have a better chance going against fillies. It's sort of like mixing sexes in some of our sports, but is there any prejudice against that for a good reason, or is this based upon the year when you just have a super athlete, you got a super athlete? Any thoughts on that?
I think that you hit it on the head, super athletes. I will tell you, the owner of Jiggy Jog S, which he caught some people off guard entering her, but he only buys trotting fillies. And he thought that this might be his chance in his lifetime to race in the Hambletonian. So he took a shot and put her in, and she's definitely a factor. She won her elimination race, so she's proven that she can beat the colts. So it's kind of a personal opinion with the owners of these horses. But, everybody that buys a yearling trotter wants to be in the Hambletonian. If you get a filly that's got a chance to win, I can certainly see why they would do it. And like, as you alluded to, the reward, it's just the highest we have in our game.
In general, is the finish for the Hambo going to be slightly faster than the finish for the Oaks?
Yeah, usually. Not every time, but usually the colts will go faster than the fillies.
So the good news out of this is all the people that are entered in the Oaks are very happy that those two horses are entered in the Hambo.
Absolutely. There's 10 horses in there right now are really happy that those owners took a shot and put those fillies in, because they were, they'd have pushed everybody down a notch if they were in with the fillies.
Yeah. Well, based upon the horses, the drivers, the trainers who qualified for these super races, do you have any predictions for the outcome of either race? Do you want to stick your neck out and make any predictions of who at least is going to be in the top 1, 2, or 3 of each of these? I'm just curious.
Well, I think I mentioned the ones that have the best shot in the colts. I think Venerable will be the filly that would be favored in the Oaks. She was a champion 2-year-old. She struggled a little bit coming back at 3, but her last 3 races have been extremely strong. She won her elimination. And we had a wild card filly come down from Canada named Morowi Xenia, and she put on a display of trotting her last quarter that many people hadn't seen before. She was at the rail and out of contention in the middle of the last turn, and she just appeared on the screen in the last eighth and was streaking. So she certainly opened up a lot of people's eyes. Fashion Schooner was the favorite in that division. She finished second. She's drawn post 10 in the Oaks, but I think those three fillies, will be the favorites, and I expect the winner to come out of that group.
Why did Fashion Sooner end up with the 10th post so far out? Do you have any explanation for the public, since that was one of the favorite or better predicted?
Well, yeah, we reward the elimination winners they get the opportunity to draw posts 1 through 5. So if you win your elimination, it doesn't guarantee you a great post, but it keeps you from having a terrible post. Fashion Schooner, by losing by that neck that she lost to last, she went into an open draw, and just the way it turned out, she drew 10.
Well, she's got the same driver, Tetrick, who's driving Rebuff for the Hambletonian, will be driving Fashion Sooner for the Oaks, and he's coming out of the last hole. And give a shout out to Jules Siegel, the owner, who's a super supporter of Standardbred racing. I've crossed with him at least through my previous experience at Tufts a few times. Very interesting, this stallion that keeps coming up over and over again is this Walner, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but he has Chapter 7 on the top side, meaning the sire, and he's got Muscle Hill on the dam side.
He just exploded on the scene with his 2-year-olds last year when they were eligible to race, and they've continued on with the 3-year-olds. He's got 2-year-olds again this year that are exceptional. And I don't know if any sire has made such an impact with his first 2 crops ever as Walner has. It's been phenomenal to watch, and they're horses that obviously they're gifted. They have speed, but they're horses that people can rate. They can drive them. They're not crazy, and he's somebody that's going to be a factor for a long, long time, in my opinion.
Well, I'll make one prediction here, and I'm sure it'll be accurate, that his stud fees are going to go up.
They went up off of last year, and I think they're going to continue to climb, Doc.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time and expert comments. We're going to be talking to Tetrick, hopefully a little bit later, and I want to speak to the trainer of Muscle Hill, Greg Peck, and get a little bit more on the breeding end of things. Very interesting how these different lines affect what happens in the future, and it's all determined by these 2 races. And want to thank you very much for taking the time to give us this interview, and look forward to a good, safe race day that day. And we'll see how all our predictions turn out.
Well, thanks, Doc. Thanks very much for having me, and that's what we're hoping for, an exciting, safe race.
As a final note, I'd like to say that we encourage all of our audience to either attend or watch the televised coverage of these prestigious races at the Meadowlands this Saturday. Pick your favorites, and if you're inclined to, bet on them. One thing that I didn't mention during the interview with John Campbell is that if you get a chance, you should watch the eliminations of the Oaks. That horse, it's a filly, Wara Xenia. Unbelievable how she came on so strong at the end. She passed 2 horses in front of her. I don't think they even saw her coming. So it was a very, very exciting race, and the kind of thing that the sports fans would love to see. Thanks again to John Campbell and to everyone else that contributed in today's program. I'm here today with Billy O'Donnell, prominent Standardbred driver and Harness Racing Hall of Fame member. I could spend a lot of time reading all these credentials, but I'm going to cut to the chase here. He's got a race career of 23 years, won 5,742 races, and made just shy of $100 million in purses. He dominated the money-winning list 7 years and was second to John Campbell another 4 years. In 1984, he won the first sub-150 mile in 149 with historic Hall of Fame Annihilator for the Meadowlands pace. In 1985, he was sports first, quote, $10 million man, and that same year he won the Hambletonian with Practice. He's won 8 Breeders' Crown wins, 5 Trotting Triple Crown wins, 6 Pacing Triple Crown wins, nicknamed, quote, the Magic Man for driving horses past their limitations. Billy, you're the man, and thank you so much for spending this time. We welcome you, And thanks for helping us out, get a little bit of a perspective on the impending 2022 Hambletonian and Oaks races from the Meadowlands this coming Saturday.
Oh, thank you, Doc, for having me. It's my pleasure. And
Well, you're a gentleman. We spoke probably for an hour before this interview, and we'll go afterwards. But you and I could tell stories all day, and I appreciate the fact that you share your wisdom with me and some of the past historic things that happened. Now, Saturday we'll be watching several of the best trotters, and just for my audience, that's the free-legged standardbreds that are racing versus the pacers, which have hobbles in general.
Right.
They're the best horses in the country for one of this year's most prestigious standardbred set of races, both the Hambo or the Hambletonian and the Oaks.
Yeah.
Amidst this competition, is there anything in particular that jumps out at you as regarding all this equine talent, super drivers, and top trainers?
Well, like you said, there is a lot of talent in both races, the Oaks and the Hambletonian, and you got a great bunch of drivers in there, trainers, and the guys don't make many mistakes. So the guy that's got the best horse better be on his game, because there's other guys in there that'll take advantage of it if he doesn't. But I think it's going to be a great race, even though Rebuff looks like, the favorite, but you've got 3 or 4 other horses in there that went good races, very, very good races, right? So 2 fillies, actually, they both raced really well.
Yeah, well, we're hoping on deck, we're hoping Tim Tetrick, who's going to be driving Rebuff, is going to give us an interview. He's been gracious last year and again this year, and he's also got the horse that's got a lot of potential in the Oaks, Fashion Schooner.
Yeah.
And you're right about these 2 fillies, which is amazing. What's amazing about that story is that the standardbred racing is one of those where the Hambletonian's open. I guess the Belmont for thoroughbreds is open too, but we don't have as many fillies entering, let alone winning. Once in a while it happens, but we have two fillies or mares that won in 2020 was Ramona Hill, a Muscle Hill filly. In 2018, Atlanta, a Chapter 7 filly.
Yeah.
These are great. What do you see any issues with the fillies racing against the colts or there's a couple geldings here and there?
Well, I think they get away with it a time or two. It's like a lot of things, you get them up for that one big race, and they mentally can do it and physically. But it's a steady diet. I don't think they could do it when they're young. But over in New York, they race, filly against colt all the time once they become 5-year-olds, and they race, 5, 6, 7, even 8. Not so much the mares, but up to like 7 years old. So a couple of those fillies like that Jiggy Jog actually I bet on the horse that was second. I thought he would win, but she get out the last little bit. I mean, when she get out, she was flying, and she's fresh. That's a great thing. You want to see them, in 7 days apart, finish a mile up fresh. They're not tired, so that helps a lot, right? So.
Absolutely, and it's interesting. I'm looking here at the breeding, and I'm hoping to interview Greg Peck a little later on and discuss that a little bit with him, because I'm seeing, this Woolner is just a superstar, and he's a Chapter 7 stallion out of a Muscle Hill mare, which is absolutely incredible. And mixing 2 super bloodlines, it seems to be a home run, at least as far as Woolner is concerned.
Yeah. You need that, I think, every once in a while, some fresh blood to come into the pool. And he happened to be the one. Like Winsong Legacy was, I think, the one. And, he was the sire of Chapter 7, now Woolner. And you need it. You really need it once in a while. With the French, they're doing a lot of French American bred stuff too. And it's really great and quite a horse, really.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for the Muscle Hill connections, not only because of him being a great sire of sires and progeny, but also in the filly line. We saw that an analogy in the thoroughbred world with Secretariat became a great broodmare sire too. So he's scoring on both sides, and it's a great cross that was found.
When Valley Victory was on his game, and his horses finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, his colts in the Beacon Course Trot, which was a big race prior to the Hamiltonian. In the Hamiltonian, the year that Continental Victory won, they finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So, which was pretty darn good. But then he wasn't a very good breeder. He could only breed like 60, 70 mares, and he wasn't that good. So somebody said, that's God's way of keeping parity in the trotting business, and not letting them breed a whole lot, right? So, and he went on to be a great sire and great broodmare sire, and that's where Muscle Hill came from.
Well, on a lighter note, prior to you, I spoke to John Campbell, and with a straight face, I said, I absolutely have a prediction that's going to hold true in the future. He said, what's that? I said that the stud fees on Walner are going to go up. So
Right. Yeah.
he started laughing. He said, they went up last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't go up again. But that's the way the industry goes. There's a lot of money at stake for who comes out and what genes get passed on. So I'll ask you an untypical question for a standardbred driver, but I've asked this of high-end show guy Joe Fargis, and I've asked it of polo guys and thoroughbred guys. But what percent of the win is attributable to the horse versus the driver?
95% horse, 5% driver. That's what they paid me. So I figured that was only worth 5%, and that's fine. That was absolutely fine. That thoroughbred jockeys are 10%, it seems like. But anyway.
Well, you're being modest. So you said 5% for you. You think jockeys say 10%?
Well, they get paid 10%. I'm just saying that's what we get paid.
Oh, okay.
With a driver or a jockey, basically, from my point of view, all we did, the thinking for the horse, number one, and try to conserve his energy the best you can until you get to the last quarter or eighth of a mile. That was always, I remember I was driving a horse for a guy one time, and he was a French guy, and he didn't speak English very good. And the guy that trained him, we were going to freehold. He said, let's call the guy Gaetan and ask him, about this filly. So I got on there and I said, anything I got to know about that filly? He said, just save some power for come home. That's what he said. So, and he was right. I did, and she won. So I think any good driver knows that you got to conserve them and save them. But
and maybe I don't want to speak for you, but learning what I've learned from some of the thoroughbred trainers is stay the hell out of the horse's way. In other words, you could ruin a horse if you try to interfere too much with whatever natural talent they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure you get a horse that's. My uncle always told me, and I learned lots from him. He said, if you got a young horse and he's eager and he wants to leave fast out of the gate and stuff, don't let him. He said, if you got one that's really lazy and doesn't want to leave, make him. So I always kind of thought that they're a little bit hot. They could ruin themselves. They get speed crazy and all the other things that go with it. So.
Well, I do know from reading the biography that with Secretariat, the final, they told Ron Turcotte to pace the horse and save something, in the race. He'd been through a grueling 2 races, etc. And, they told him don't use too much up front. He said, but that day when he got on Secretariat, he had more energy than ever before. And he didn't really stop him, but he just let him run his own race. And he just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And he went against the trainer's recommendations and everyone's recommendations. And in his mind, he justified. He said, the horse got me to this point. I'm going to let the horse decide what's in his best interest.
Well, I think, people, trainers, owners of horses, sometimes they have a different perspective than we do as a driver or jockey. They're trying to protect their horse and get the most out of them they can. They want to come back fresh and sound and healthy, basically, right? So
right.
Sometimes you just got to kind of go against the grain and go by what you feel. And Ronnie obviously felt that horse was, wanted to do more, and he let him do more, and he sure did.
Well, based upon the horses, the drivers, the trainers who qualified for these 2 super races, do you have any predictions for the outcome of either race this year?
Not really. I mean, Rebuff, like I said, it's pretty hard to bet against him. And in the filly race, I'll give you my little bit of a dissertation on that one there, would be just because she's a local favorite too, is Warwi Xenia. She's won 7 out of 8 and got beat once, and she raced up home here at Mohawk in the overnight races. And I don't know if you watched the replays, but boy, the last eighth of a mile, she was marching. She gunned that horse down of Tetrick and beat her. She didn't do
No, I did watch that. I watched the finales there in the second heat of the Oaks, the eliminations, and I can't tell you who the first 2 leading were, but all I know is they didn't see her coming. She looked like that horse that won the Kentucky Derby. I think it was Rich Strike. He came out of nowhere and all of a sudden came flying down the stretch.
Yeah, she was so. And then interviewed Bob after and said she was really good. And his comment was, "I've seen her better."
Well, again, I'm going to use the same humor I used with Campbell, because I said it's really the one good news for these two fillies running in the Hambletonian is that 10 people got the opportunity in the Oaks to win it. Because
absolutely,
they got the hell off the card, and they said, thank God we don't have to worry about them.
No, that's right. Watch him later on.
Yeah. Sure. All right, Billy, listen, you've always been so gracious with your time, and you're a legend.
My own mind.
You've accomplished a lot. You should be proud of that. Not everyone gets to get even close to that level. So I thank you very much for coming on the show today and giving us your opinions. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who enjoy hearing from you.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. My pleasure.
Anytime, Billy. We encourage all our audience to either attend or watch the televised coverage of these prestigious races at the Meadowlands this Saturday afternoon, August 6th. Pick your favorites, root for them, and bet on them if you're so inclined. Thanking you and all our guests, I am your host, Dr. Gregory Barroza.